Imagine this, you've done everything by the book. You've cut them off, you've deleted their number, you've resisted the urge to check their social media, you've sat through the deafening silence convincing yourself that the universe would reward your patience, but here you are, still haunted by memories, still feeling like you're losing a game you didn't even know you were playing. No contact didn't work. So now what? Most people will tell you to keep waiting, to trust the process, but let's be real. Time alone doesn't heal wounds. It's what you do with that time that matters. And if you're stuck in a cycle of overthinking, if their absence still occupies your mind like an uninvited guest, it's time for something different, something darker. Not darkness in the sense of revenge or bitterness. No, that only keeps you tethered to them. This is a different kind of darkness, the kind that forces you to stop seeking closure from them and start creating it yourself, the kind that strips away the illusion that they held any power over your healing, the kind that says, I will not just move on, I will transform. You see, most people think moving on is about forgetting, but real detachment isn't about erasing memories, it's about shifting their weight. It's about reclaiming the energy you once poured into someone who didn't deserve it and turning it into fuel. Fuel to become someone they could never reach again. This isn't about playing mind games. It's about stepping into a version of yourself so unrecognizable that even you have to pause and admire the evolution. It's about breaking free, not just from them, but from the version of you that kept waiting for something that was never coming. You want real healing? Stop focusing on them entirely. No anger, no longing, no waiting, just raw, unapologetic self-reinvention. The kind that makes you wake up one day and realize you don't need them, you never did, and you never will. You did what everyone said would work. You walked away, you cut the cord. You erased the texts, ignored the calls, and told yourself that time would do the rest. But here you are, still feeling their presence in the quiet moments, still hearing their voice in the echoes of your mind, still questioning if you made the right choice. No contact was supposed to be the magic solution, but the truth is, silence alone doesn't heal. Distance doesn't erase emotions. If it did, heartbreak would be simple, just a matter of space and time. But healing is never that easy, is it? It's messy, it's unpredictable, and sometimes it's maddeningly slow. The mistake isn't in going no contact, it's in believing that it's the only step you need to take. You can remove someone from your life, but if they still live rent-free in your thoughts, if your energy is still orbiting around what they did or didn't do, then you haven't really let them go. You've just built a wall and stood on the other side, peeking through the cracks, hoping they notice you're missing. Real detachment isn't about silence. It's about shifting focus. It's about understanding that no contact is just a doorway, not the destination. Walking away isn't the power move. What you do after that is. And if you're sitting in the dark waiting for them to feel your absence, you're still giving them control. So don't just disappear, don't just wait. Transform. Become someone they would no longer recognize, not because you want them to see it, but because you owe it to yourself to evolve beyond the version of you that tolerated less than you deserved. No contact didn't work? Good. That means it's time for something deeper. Something that doesn't just remove them from your life, but removes the hold they had over your soul. You keep telling yourself that one day you'll get the closure you need. That one conversation, one explanation, one moment of clarity will come, and then finally you'll be free. But deep down, you know the truth. Closure isn't something they can give you, it's something you have to take for yourself. We grow up believing that the people who hurt us will eventually feel remorse, that they'll come back and validate our pain, that they'll tell us what we need to hear so we can move on. But what if they never do? What if they never explain, never apologize, never acknowledge what they did? Does that mean you're supposed to stay stuck, waiting for an answer that may never come? The hardest thing to accept is that sometimes the only closure you'll get is the silence itself. Their absence is the answer. The way they walked away, the way they didn't fight for you, the way they left you questioning your worth, that is all the truth you need. And while it's painful, it's also a gift. Because once you stop searching for closure in places that will never offer it, you give yourself permission to create it on your own terms. You don't need their apology to heal. You don't need their explanation to move forward. You don't need them to acknowledge your pain for it to be real. What you need is to stop waiting. Stop holding your breath. Stop believing that the past has any power over your future. Because the second you let go of the idea that they owe you something, you become unstoppable. So if no contact didn't work, if you're still waiting for closure, ask yourself, do I really need their words? Or do I just need to choose myself for once? The answer has been inside you all along, and the moment you realize that, the grip they had on your heart finally disappears. You keep trying to forget. You tell yourself that if you can just erase the memories, if you can push them far enough into the past, they'll stop haunting you. But that's not how it works, is it? Because no matter how hard you try to bury them, they resurface. in songs, in places, in the quiet moments when your mind has nowhere else to go. The truth is, forgetting isn't the key to healing. You can't outrun your own mind. You can't pretend that something didn't matter when every part of you knows it did. But here's what you can do. You can take the weight of those memories and shift it. You can stop letting them be chains that hold you down and start using them as stepping stones to rise higher. You don't need to erase the past to move forward. You just need to change its power over you. Right now, every time you think of them, it feels like a loss. But what if, instead of seeing those memories as proof of what was, you saw them as proof of what you survived? What if every time their name crossed your mind, it wasn't a reminder of the pain, but a reminder of the strength it took to walk away? Healing isn't about pretending something never happened. It's about changing the story you tell yourself about it. Instead of "I lost them," say "I found myself." Instead of "they left me," say "I was freed." Instead of "I'll never be the same," say "that version of me had to break so a stronger one could be built." So if no contact didn't work, if the memories are still lingering, don't fight them. Reclaim them. Take them back from the version of you that felt powerless and hand them to the version of you that is rising. Because once you do that, they no longer own a piece of you. And that's real freedom. You sit there wondering when it will stop hurting, wondering when the ache will fade, when the memories will loosen their grip, when the silence will feel like peace instead of punishment. You keep telling yourself to be patient, to trust that one day you'll wake up and magically feel okay. But what if that day never comes? What if time alone isn't enough? Because here's the truth. No one tells you healing isn't about waiting. It's about becoming. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that doesn't just move on, but transforms. If no contact didn't work, if you're still feeling stuck, it's because you're waiting for the pain to leave instead of using it to build something new. You don't get over someone by standing still. You don't find yourself by sitting in the same spaces where you lost them. You grow, you stretch, you evolve into someone they would no longer recognize. Not for them, not for revenge, but for you. Because the person who needed them, the person who cried for them, that version of you is gone. And the one rising now, they don't need closure. They don't need validation. They don't need to be noticed. You don't heal by looking back. You heal by walking forward so boldly that the past has no choice but to fade behind you. You take the love you wasted on them and turn it into fuel. You take the pain they left and turn it into power. You become so untouchable, so deeply rooted in your own worth, that even if they came back, they wouldn't recognize the person standing before them. No contact didn't work? Then stop waiting for it to. Stop waiting for time to do the work that only action can. Reinvent yourself so profoundly that the old wounds become nothing more than lessons, and the person who once held you down becomes nothing more than a distant memory. Because you were never meant to just move on, you were meant to rise. You think your silence is enough. You think that by staying quiet, by disappearing, by cutting them off, they'll feel your absence like a storm rolling in. That they'll sit there staring at the empty space you left, realizing what they lost. But what if they don't? What if they never notice, never care, never look back? Does that mean you lost? No, because silence isn't power. Growth is. So if you're sitting in the dark, hoping they're out there somewhere missing you, you're still playing their game. You're still measuring your worth by their reactions, still holding your breath, still waiting for them to validate what you already know deep down. You deserved better. And real power isn't in hoping they see that, it's in making sure you see it. No contact wasn't supposed to be about them. It was supposed to be about you, about stepping back, not to make them wonder, but to make yourself wonder. Who could you become without the weight of them holding you down? What could you build if all the energy you wasted trying to be enough for them was redirected into becoming more than they ever imagined? Stop waiting for them to feel your absence. Stop checking if they watched your story, if they unblocked you, if they're dropping breadcrumbs to pull you back in. None of that matters. What matters is this. When you look in the mirror a year from now, will you recognize the person staring back? Will you see someone who stayed stuck, waiting for validation that never came? Or will you see someone who turned pain into purpose, who used heartbreak as a launch pad, who became untouchable, not because they needed to prove anything, but because they chose to rise? If no contact didn't work, good. Let it push you toward something bigger than silence. Let it push you toward reinvention. Because the real power move isn't in disappearing, it's in becoming someone they could never reach again. You tell yourself you're done, that you've moved on, that you're stronger now, but deep down, there's still a part of you waiting for them to notice, waiting for them to miss you, waiting for some proof that your absence mattered. And that's where you're stuck. Not in the past, not in the breakup, but in the waiting. Because the truth is, you're still playing mind games with yourself. You say you don't care, but you check if they watched your stories. You say you've let go, but you still feel that flicker of hope when their name pops up. You say you're healing, but your thoughts still orbit around the idea of them, whether they regret it, whether they've moved on, whether they still think of you at night like you think of them. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. Why does it matter? Why does their reaction dictate your healing? Why does their silence still hold so much weight? If no contact was really about moving on, then why does part of you still crave proof that they feel your absence? Because deep down, you're not just missing them, you're missing the validation. You're missing the reassurance that you were worth missing. But that's the trap. That's the illusion that keeps you tethered to something that was never meant to hold you forever. So what if, instead of waiting for them to feel something, you shifted all that energy into yourself? What if, instead of measuring your worth by their response, you built a life so full, so whole, so undeniably yours that they became nothing more than a passing thought? What if you became so at peace within yourself that even if they reached out, even if they begged, even if they tried to return, you'd look at them and realize you don't want them anymore? That's real detachment. Not silence, not pretending, not waiting for them to notice, just being so deeply in love with your own life that their presence or absence means absolutely nothing. So if no contact didn't work, if you're still playing the game in your mind, stop. Walk away from the game entirely. Not to prove anything to them, but to finally set yourself free. You think the best revenge is making them miss you, that one day they'll wake up drowning in regret, scrolling through old photos, wondering how they ever let you go. You picture them reaching out, their voice softer, their words full of longing, finally realizing what they lost. But let's be honest. Why does it matter? The real flex isn't in making them regret losing you. It's in reaching a place where they're so irrelevant that their regret wouldn't even register. Because the truth is, as long as you're waiting for them to notice your absence, they still have power over you. As long as you're hoping they see the new, better version of you, you're still tied to them. And that's not healing, that's just another way of staying stuck. The real power move, becoming someone they could never reach again. Not because you blocked them, not because you cut them off, but because the version of you that wanted them no longer exists. The person they left behind, gone. The person who cried over them, unrecognizable. The person who once needed closure, validation, or proof of their mistake, nowhere to be found. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who couldn't see it in the first place. You don't need them to wish they had treated you better. You just need to build a life so full, so magnetic, so undeniably yours, that even if they did come back, you'd realize they no longer fit. Not because they changed, but because you did. If no contact didn't work, let this be your next move. Don't just move on. Move up. Elevate so high that their absence doesn't even feel like a loss, but a necessary step toward the life you were always meant to have. Because the best revenge isn't their regret, it's your evolution. You thought no contact would be the finish line, the end of the story, the final step toward your freedom. But now you see it for what it really is. Not the destination, but the door. A door you walked through, thinking distance alone would heal you, only to realize that ghosts don't live outside of you, they live within. And this is where most people stop. They cut someone off, but never cut the emotional ties. They delete numbers, but keep replaying the memories. They move forward physically, but remain trapped mentally, stuck in an endless cycle of waiting to feel different, waiting to forget, waiting for some cosmic justice that may never come. You are not most people. You didn't come this far just to stop at silence. You didn't survive what broke you just to sit in the wreckage, hoping they notice what they lost. You are here to do something deeper, something darker, something real, not just to move on, but to transform. This is the moment where you stop making your healing about them, where you stop hoping they see your absence and start making sure you see yourself. This is where you take every ounce of pain they left you with and forge it into something unshakable, where you stop trying to erase the past and start using it as fuel, because the truth is, the best version of you isn't the one they regret losing. It's the one who no longer cares if they regret it at all. The one who is too busy building, too busy thriving, too busy becoming untouchable to even glance back. No contact? Didn't work? Good. That means it's time for something greater. Something that doesn't just remove them from your life, but removes the hold they ever had on your soul. You don't just heal, you rise. You don't just let go, you evolve. And when that happens, there is no revenge to be had, no validation to be sought, because the life you're about to build will be proof enough.